And so these high energy electrons get passed through the electron transport system in the membrane, and eventually they get passed into the active transport protein, where it uses the voltage, the energy of that electron, as the energy source to pump the solute molecules through. Kind of fascinating. Now, as a preview of something that's going to come up in a couple weeks, part of the photosynthesis process, where the cells make, where plant cells make glucose molecules using the energy of sunlight, part of that photosynthesis process will involve something exactly like you see here, where the cell is using an electron transport system to energize an active transport protein to make a hydrogen ion gradient. Photosynthesis is actually a pretty complex process, and anyway, you'll see this step as part of it. And the link between sunlight and photosynthesis is this, that the sunlight charges up the electrons. You need high voltage, high energy electrons to make this occur, and electrons are able to absorb light to pick up energy. So the light shines on the electrons get energized, they flow through here, and eventually you get a hydrogen ion gradient. And then, in case you're wondering where all this is going, the hydrogen ion gradient, once it's established, is used to make ATP, and then the ATP in turn is used to power the anabolic reaction, the constructing of the glucose molecules. Wow, now that I think about it, that's a lot of energy transformations. The sunlight charges up the electrons powers active transport, the active transport makes a hydrogen ion gradient makes ATP, ATP is used for the assembly of glucose molecules. It's like 5 different energy transport transformations for the photosynthesis reaction to occur. Sound alrighty so far? Okay, well, I want to start to introduce one more concept before the quiz. When we were talking about solutes, solutes just mean molecules that are dissolved in a liquid, typically in water. One of the major concepts is that solutes dissolve in water because they attract water molecules. If things are ions, like sodium ions or chloride ions, they attract water molecules electrostatically because the ions have electrical charges and the water molecules have partial charges, which are still attracted to those ionic charges. And even for molecules that aren't ions, like this glycerol molecule, they still attract water molecules electrostatically because the glycerol molecule has partial charges, and those will attract the partial charges of the water molecules. So the main point here is solutes attract water molecules. There you see the cell membrane, and the Mickey Mouse looking molecules both inside and outside are the water molecules. And let's say that the cell happens to have a high concentration of sodium ions on one side of the membrane and very few solute molecules on the other. Well, the sodium ions can't get across the cell membrane because they're hydrophilic and the membrane's hydrophobic. But kind of surprisingly, water molecules can pass through cell membranes. And that seems a little wacky at first because water molecules are hydrophilic and the cell membrane is hydrophobic. But as strange as it sounds, water molecules can get through membranes. And for that reason, they say cell membranes are selectively permeable. Water can get across, but the solutes can't. Well, since the solutes the sodium ions have to stay on that side, but nevertheless they are going to be attracting water molecules, the water molecules are going to want to move across the cell membrane towards the sodium ions that are attracting. And so you'll get movement of water across cell membranes towards whichever side has the higher solute concentration. And that principle is called osmosis, spontaneous movement of water across a selectively permeable membrane, which just means water can crack across, but solutes can't. And the water will always go towards whichever side has the highest total solute concentration. And the sound bite that I remember for osmosis is this: water follows solutes. Wherever there's more solutes, that's where the water is going to go. Okay, we'll pick up osmosis again next week. I'll give you your quiz. Put your goodies away, please.